Well, good morning. Welcome back to GP Outdoors. I've shown you folks these oak trees a couple of times. I think it's the only oak trees I have on this whole property, or at least that I've ever been able to find. Mother Nature grew it for me. But the trouble is that we've got two trunks growing right out of the ground. And I've been told by several people, including Husky Bob, who came over to take a look at them, that one of them has to go, or I'm going to end up with trouble later on as it continues to grow. It looks like this guy's got to go, and we're going to keep this one in the back. I'm going to cut her down. We'll put the chicken wire around it again to save it from the beavers and let her keep growing, and hopefully it'll grow much bigger and healthier without having to compete with this second stem here. But sometimes you got to get rid of some of the live ones. Like this ash and this little maple. Right in a really bad spot on the corner here. The driveway is really narrow through here, through the trees, and they're right around this corner. Especially in the wintertime, almost every time you come through here, the car or the truck will slide, and we skin that ash tree almost every time. Haven't hit it yet. And that's why we're going to take it down before one of us does. When I fell these two trees, I'm going to fell them high because I'm going to need some trunk to throw a chain around, because I need to get these stumps out of here and cut this ground down, back down to at least the driveway level. So I think it makes sense to leave a few feet here so I've got some room to try to leverage the stumps out. We'll use the grapple, dig it up a bit first, then throw a chain on them and see if we can get them out. Be nice to have a backhoe or an excavator right about now. Well, we made quick work of that. It's humidex at 34 degrees right now. It is hot. I just wanted to take a minute and talk about a few things out of today's video, especially because I know, there's a lot of folks like myself years ago that are just new to property, maybe even got your first chainsaw over the last year. This is now the 10th year since I pulled the cord on my first chainsaw. And over time, you start to get a little better at it, but you're always learning. And when it comes to dropping trees, I've probably by now dropped dozens of trees, but I still to this day don't drop them unless neighbor guy or Husky Bob or somebody's here to watch for me. Somebody that's got a lot more experience than me. And every time you drop a tree, I learn something new. Today was no different. The nice thing about it though, is that I've had a little experience behind me. Take this little maple, for example. I could tell when I was making my back cut that it was a pretty light tree and it was a little hung up in the ash. So I knew I was going to end up cutting right through it and it would end up falling back on the stump, which is exactly what it did. And that's probably why you noticed I stopped for a minute and shifted my feet, because I wanted to make sure there was room for me to back up, because I had a feeling that trunk was just going to fall straight down. It's happened so many times. These little saplings or these small little trees, they do it all the time. Because although a tree generally is heavy, relatively speaking, they're not that heavy compared to others. So they tend to get caught. Your saw will normally go right through that back cut and it'll just fall off the stump straight down as that one did. A couple of things that I did want to point out with the ash, that's not the first time it's happened. Guy and Husky Bob have warned me several times, and it's happened to me several times over the years. It was a pretty straight tree, and it was tall. And there was not a lot of limbs to it, as you probably noticed. They were all up top, probably because of all the shade in the forest. But when I made that back cut, she was just standing straight. There was no tension or compression on my saw or on the bar, whether it was on the front or the back. It just sat. And you tend to get a bit of, inkling like you want to cut that back cut a little closer and thin out your hinge. But you shouldn't do that, I understand. Because that's all bad, because then it can possibly lean back on the saw. So, great time for a wedge. And of course, I only had one. And that happens, I think, when you start hanging out with your neighbors a lot. I have 3 or 4 wedges, but I could only find one this morning. I guarantee the other ones are over at Guy's place. Not that he stole them, but you tend to be out in the forest, you use each other's equipment. And then sometimes you leave stuff in the trailer. But either way, I got the wedge in and it still wouldn't fall. And we've seen this a few times over the years. The tree will stand and it sometimes will take a minute, 2 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes before it finally falls. I don't know why it happens, but it happens. And this was no different. I just turned the camera off. Oh, no. I thought I need another wedge.
I looked up and thought, oh no.
Yeah. Just like you've told me so many times before, sometimes they just a little time on their own to fall.
Oh, a little bit of breeze, and that's all it takes.
Sorry about that. That was the good one.
Oh, that was excellent.
Hey, my hinge looks good though. I turned the camera off to go get another wedge so I could put 2 in there to get it over. And sure enough, it fell after I turned the camera off. Worst thing for a YouTube creator, I lost the money shot. But the important thing I wanted to mention is I had Guy here. And although I was 50, 60 feet close to the cabin, I was far away from the tree. I heard Guy yell and I turned around and I saw it fall to the ground. The important thing I learned is you should never turn your back on a tree, and that's why.
Go ahead and rip it.
You probably also noticed I had no ballast on the tractor. And you know me, I know enough to get ballast, but I knew these trees were pretty light, and I was doing some other work this morning which I needed the drawbar for, and I knew I was just picking up brush and some of the small stuff. And that's why there was no ballast. It's the only reason. The back tires are filled, and I had no problem lifting that. And in fact, the tree was so light, or the ash tree, you probably noticed that I didn't buck it into long lengths. I just picked it up in certain spots and lifted it up enough to be able to get my saw on it and buck those rounds. But she had no problem. But generally speaking, you should always have ballast on the back of the tractor. And lastly, the stumps. That'll be a video for another day. I'm gonna go at it with the grapple in the tractor alone and a chain just to see if I can pull these stumps out myself, and if not, we might have to give neighbor Ralph a call with his BX and his backhoe. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you like the channel, please click subscribe, hit the like button, and if you want to know when I'm posting videos, just click that little notification bell. Have a wonderful week with your families. Please be kind to each other, and I'll see you again right here on GP Outdoors. Cheers.